Hey guys, Wolfie here. This is RWBY Volume 8, Chapter 7. This is for the channel, so you guys kind of know the drill. Basically, it's like a bit of synopsis of what's happening and where I think it's going to go from here after this episode. So, believe it or not, Chapter 8, Volume 8, let me get this correct, Volume 8, Chapter 7 for RWBY. Now, as you guys know the drill, the usual disclaimer. Any opinion in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. You might see a little guest right here. That is Sandy. He could be one super attentive tabby, so you might see him in the video, so I do have to give you guys a fair warning. And with that out of the way, the usual disclaimer, any opinion in this video is my opinion only, so we're just going to jump straight into this without any delay. And the title for Volume 8, Chapter 7 is called War. Now, you guys get to see here on my screen, it says it's all-out war in Atlas. Our heroes facing the possible problem. Where do they go from here? So, in my personal opinion, you get to see the switch of point of view again. And I do think that here in this particular chapter, it is starting to confirm that Emerald will for sure be the one that betrays Salem, because we do know that Oscar reveals the actual way to get to access the lamp to see what it does. And like I said, I do feel this is leaning towards Emerald being the one who betrays Salem, gets to ask that final question, so Salem doesn't have a shot at whatever it is. And some people were mentioning how Emerald might be based off of Aladdin, where it's like, you get to the lamp, you do whatever you want with it, that sort of thing. I mean, I won't be surprised if that comes out, in my personal opinion. But it is what it is, what actually happens here, regarding Emerald or whatever. But I do feel that it's becoming more and more evident that Emerald's going to be the one who betrays Salem in this regard. However, I don't know if she's going to be the only one, but I do know she's probably going to be the one who kind of turns her back on Salem. Now, Hazel's a bit of a question mark because, what we know from Volume 5, where he is blaming Oz for what happened to his sister. And but that's just me, so Hazel's a bit of a wait and see, but I do feel Emerald's going to be betraying Salem. And I do think she's also going to betray Cinder as well, because of what she's starting to figure out. Now, the whole thing with Mercury and Tyrion heading to Vacchio. Now, if RWBY is confirmed to go into the Vacchio realm for volumes at least 10 and 11, we're probably going to be seeing a lot more Mercury in Volume 10 for sure. Now, the question is with Tyrion. It's like, he's being as elusive as ever. The question is when will he be caught, if he gets caught? And who's going to be the one that gives the people justice they deserve? And like I said, we don't know, simply for the simple matter of the value. Now, Ironwood, I do feel he is going to be exposed in the second half of Volume 8, if not in Volume 9 for sure. Now, regarding Winter and her decision to allow Jean, Ren, and Yang to go after Oscar the way they're doing it, and the evolution of Ren's semblance, seeing the emotions from those in Aesop's as well as Winter, it's like, damn. This is kind of what I was thinking of regarding at least some of the characters, where it's like their semblances, their auras are evolving, because you remember in Volume 5, Ren was mentioning something along the lines of, I'm not so sure if it was Red or if it was Oscar/Oz, but it's about one. I know it was one of them mentioning something like our semblances are not done evolving. So we're probably going to be seeing more evolving of semblances in time. And we're starting to see more of that with Red. Because you know how he can mask emotions? Now he's starting to see the real emotions from those in Aesop's, as well as Winter. And this could be a big, big turning point. Now, regarding the character deaths predictions I did a while back, I'm actually going to be changing it right here, right now. And I do feel Penny, as we know her from beginning on the show and even now, we're going to be seeing her death, but not in a conventional sense. Meaning that, you know, how she is, you know, like robotic, android-like. So we're going to be seeing her death as what we've known her as, and by that being a robot. And we're going to be seeing the birth of her as a real human being. Now, the hint I feel that people might have overlooked was in very late on in Volume 7, where Penny and Winter disagree about the value of human life. Where Penny saves Winter from a certain death. And where how Winter didn't feel, you know, she didn't deserve to live, and that Penny says, I disagree. And I feel that, you know, the whole thing with Maria's influence, you know, her saying in Volume 6, life is beautiful, life it is precious, it must be protected. You know, protecting human life. And I feel that, again, the whole thing with Penny here in Volume 8 is like, we're going to be seeing her, the death, and it's an unconventional one, where it's the death of Penny as we've known her, meaning that she no longer becomes a robot or whatever, but she becomes a human being. And the reason why I feel she's going to get an unconventional death is because, you know, how Salem promised Cinder, you know, Penny's Winter Maiden powers, but I think what Salem's going to do is betray Cinder and give Penny the ability to become human. And this is where some people, you know, say Cinder's going to die. I think this is going to be a Cinder and Penny death sort of thing. Penny in a very unconventional sense of like Penny becoming human, and Cinder is really going to just die, because this volume so far we're seeing flashbacks of Cinder, you know, sense of her past, how she's becoming what she is today. And with this sort of thing going on, this is probably leading up to Cinder's death. And we're probably going to be seeing, you know, an unconventional death of Penny, you know, as what we've known her. And Penny, in turn, becomes a human being. But the question is it under the right circumstances? Because we do know that Watts switched out a chip. But the question is like, how is it going to affect everybody else? Meaning that Ironwood knew certain things. He was working with Watts, and that whole thing is going to expose Ironwood. And then the whole thing with Ironwood's thing back in Volume 4 about shutting down Atlas. Because certain people had a very hard time getting in. But you had Cinder, Neo, Watts, and Tyrion able to get in without an issue. And this is where, honestly, this is where Ironwood gets exposed. It's like, his judgment is not sound. And the fact that he's dragging other people along with him, this is not going to end well at all for Ironwood. Now, regarding Winter, I do feel she is going to become the next general of the Elysian army, as well as the new headmistress of the Atlas Academy. Now, the whole thing with Weiss, you know, her role, you know, in all of this, And since, when everything is all said and done regarding, relics, all that jazz, I think Weiss is going to stay in Alice to help Winter. Because you have one who probably becomes a head mistress of the Atlesian, of the Atlas Academy, I should say. Then you have the other one taking on as the general of the Elysian military. Or alternatively, Weiss goes into like a life of politics. Because of Volume 7. But, and again, Weiss does have a role in this. In Volume 8, we just don't know as of yet. Now, regarding, let me check the time real quick. Okay, a little bit more than 10 minutes. That's great. So, like I said, I do have 2 more videos for RWBY coming out in January. One's going to be my predictions for the second half, as well as what I think of Volume 8 thus far, because we do know for the record that this is an extended hiatus for RWBY. This is a first because it's usually, and this is going off of the show's history thus far, is that it's usually a 1 or 2 week hiatus of the show. However, we do know that it is, instead of that 1 or 2 week hiatus, so the return will be early February. And this is, I'm going to go explain more of this in one of the other 2 videos. This is a very smart move on RWBY's end for Rooster Teeth, because that way it helps them further polish. Because in short, this is an amazing volume for RWBY in a very long time. This is something they desperately needed. But like I said, I'm going to go into this in further detail later on. But to do a quick recap for Chapter 7 of Volume 8, we have a lot of things like, okay, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Who's going to die? That sort of thing. We don't know those answers to those questions, but to predict, I feel Emerald's going to be the main person that betrays both Salem and Cinder. Salem is going to betray Cinder and give Penny the ability to become human at the cost of Cinder's life, as well as Cinder's full maiden powers. And Hazel, he is a question mark. Now, I forgot to mention this early on, but we do know that Nora, is starting to come through from what she did earlier on in the volume. So I don't think she is going to die. I do feel, though, that Ren will. And the whole thing with Penny, she's not going to get a conventional death. It's just, for me, if she dies, it's the sense of the Penny as we've known her. And she comes out of this as a human being. And one of the hints I've noticed in late Volume 7 is that her disagreeing with Winter about the value of human life. That it's got to be protected. It's beautiful. It's precious. And the whole thing with Maria, her vibe rubbing off on her. So there's just a lot of question marks. We simply don't know what's going to really happen. But that's just what I'm going to predict. I do predict Winter's going to be taking on a much bigger role in Alice going forward. Ironwood will be getting exposed. We just don't know when. So with that, and I do apologize for this being a little bit later in the afternoon than the usual. Hold on. Let me pause this real quick. Sorry guys, I actually had to pause that for a little bit. I actually got a text message. Chances are you're going to be seeing a little bit of that, so I had to reply to that. So I do apologize for... Okay, I had to pause it again a little bit, so you probably caught a glimpse of 2 text messages I've seen. So yeah, I just had to pause it really quickly to do a quick read of those. So basically, Winter is going to be heading into a much bigger role with Atlas going forward. Ironwood will be getting exposed. Weiss will have an interesting, how do I want to word this? She's going to have an interesting situation in her own hands. Because, we still know that, let me reword that part. We know that Jacques is still in prison alongside Watts. But the question remains what Jock's prison sentence will be. And the whole thing with Ironwood is when will he get exposed for what he's done? Who he's helping. But again, this is just like a few of the many questions we will have for the second half of Volume 8. And I do feel that, and like I said, I forgot to mention this, we do know that Weiss will have her trial by fire. If it's not towards the end of Volume 8, it's definitely going to be Volume 9. And she's going to have a pretty damn difficult decision to make because you have the Shnita's company, which might be switching hands instead of ownership. We have the Elysium military, and this is post-exposure of Ironwood. And you have the head mistress aspect of the Alice Academy because, again, the whole thing with the exposure of Ironwood, Winter's more than likely going to be taking over, if not a definite there. So Weiss is going to have a very difficult decision here because she's got the Alice Academy, the Elysium military, the Shnita's company, or the fourth option being, does she remain on as a huntress? And I think here that Weiss will be picking the huntress path because she refers to RWBY, Blake, and Yang as her family. Because we know this in Volume 7, Chapter 4, where Blake is still holding her hand. She responds to Jacques' inquiry as not friends, family. And it caused RWBY to have a big smile on her face. So I do feel that Weiss is going to be choosing her life as a huntress over the other three, but there's going to be certain things that come along that will make that decision hard for her. So with that, I'm going to be taking a week or two away to gather my thoughts regarding the second half of Volume 8 and my thoughts on the first half of Volume 8. So I'll be taking a break from this from a little bit, but to gather my thoughts on all this. And I'm actually done with this video, so with Wolfie here, signing off. I will catch you all on the flip side.